5:30. Lisa Dorsey is not here this evening, and we are at the Public Safety Events and Quality of Life Committee Council meeting. Since Lisa, our chair, is not available, I am subbing for her tonight, Nicole Shimoni, and here with my cohort, Brian McGinnis. This meeting is now called to order, and we will take comments, suggestions, petitions by residents and attend. Oh, wait, before I do that, Brian, I would like to amend the agenda for tonight. I would like to add a 3D to the agenda to discuss the points program and rental, which is related to the rental licensing code, chapter 66, regarding student rentals. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right, so the agenda will be amended to add that discussion item. With that, we'll go to point number 2, comments, suggestions, petitions by residents in attendance regarding items not on the agenda.
Hello. I know you know me. My name is Erin Travis. I live in the Neighborhood Conservation District on the 300 block of South Walnut. I do share my concerns with my council person because I am married to him. But I know that this subcommittee has heard from us and probably knows what I'm going to say. For the record, I'm talking about enforcement and particularly the point system. First, I want to thank Police Chief Lee, and I'd like to thank our new codes enforcement people. I've had really wonderful interactions with them. On the 4th of July, I called the police because 5 or 6 individuals at a student rental were playing tag on the roof. We are always told to call the police in situations like these. Believe me, I let a lot of stuff slide. I am a college professor at Westchester. My views are my own, but my experience as a professor relates to this situation. I let a lot of stuff slide. But when kids are on the roof, I call the police because kids have died that way, including one time this semester. I was the one that called the police, but I didn't want to give my name for fear of retaliation, not only in my house, in my neighborhood, but also at work. And I was right to be concerned because these individuals did retaliate. They came to the house, they shot off a mortar firework towards our building in the middle of the street. And unless there's an update of which I'm not aware, this property has not received a citation, and as such, there will be no consequences that I know of for this behavior. And I'd like to correct what might be a misconception. Like many residents, I actually don't want nor need the police to kick in the door and haul off students to a Russian gulag because they made a mistake. We are not looking for that. But I do want there to be consequences for the tenants and for the landlords, especially when my safety and the safety of my family is threatened. And if individuals living in a student rental routinely break our ordinance and laws, then let's get them out so responsible students who need housing can come in. Believe me, I know a ton of hardworking, awesome, wonderful students who believe in community, who I'd love to have as neighbors. They might not want me as a neighbor, but that's a different story. So I'm not here to litigate this specific event, but to ask Borough Council for an update about what we are doing to enforce the ordinances already on the books. I'm told there's a point system and that landlords can lose their student rental property after a certain number of violations, yet we have these open secret nuisance rental properties with years, if not decades, of both public safeties and codes complaints. And yet these landlords still have their student permits. For example, my understanding is that the college rental on the 300 block of South High did not have its required inspections for many years. Was there a consequence for this? It's not fair, not to the residents, not to responsible landlords like my neighbor whose place is inspected every year. It's not fair to my hardworking students who are already a part of this community and need housing. I mean, sure, during the past 7 or 8 years, residents have heard a ton of platitudes. In fact, we've heard so many that we've thought about making a bingo card we could use in these discussions. We also hear all the time about what police, codes, council, and the university can't do. We want to start talking about what we can do. And if we can't do something, residents want to know why so we can help fix this system. For example, what would it take with a student rental with individuals playing on the roof to get a citation of some sort? We're always told to call the police, but if the police can't cite for valid reasons, what do we do next? Call codes, take a video. Is codes open during the weekend and holidays? I don't love the idea of residents being video vigilantes, but please, what does it take for action to happen? And so towards that end, I don't want to be one of those people that comes to Borough Council once or twice a year and yells at people and makes speeches. I'm trying to organize my neighbors for conversations with law enforcement, with university people, with Borough Council. And we used to do this all the time before COVID. And so we're trying to get this group back together again. Just so everyone knows, one of the things that would be on my bingo card is sort of the dismissive, well, this is a college town. I grew up in a college town. I grew up in Newark, Delaware, across the streets from the Rodney and Dickinson dorms. And let me tell you, I loved it. This is not the same experience. I teach PR at the university. I'm constantly having to do PR on my street to my neighbors saying, this is not the norm for our students, right? And we can do better. You know what else I love about Newark? When that student behavior changed, Newark took action to protect the quality of life and safety for their residents and students by passing an unruly social gathering ordinance. Other college municipalities have pursued different strategies. We can figure this out. They figured it out. We can figure it out. I look forward to having this conversation. I know you all are volunteers and you do a lot, and I appreciate it. And I hope I don't come off as super aggressive, but we're frustrated. And I look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will continue the conversation when we get to 3D, which we just added. So, any other comments, suggestions from residents?
Hi, Marty Nebel. I live on Walnut Street as well. I'd like to echo sentiments of what Aaron had to say. It just doesn't feel like there's a real plan. And last semester, I could tell you it got worse, and it was post-COVID, so things were definitely different during the pandemic. But I could tell you pretty much you could set your watch at my house at 11:15 and 2:15 every night this past semester due to the noise. People walking down the street, banging on signs, vandalizing things, tearing trees down, tearing signs down. I saw 3 signs last semester that were kicked over on any given weekend. And I think there needs to be a better plan to enforce this and also change those behaviors, because by the time we call, those people are gone. We can call all we want, and it takes a few minutes generally, or 5, they're gone. And so there needs to be better. I'd love to see a better plan, at least at the beginning of the semester and then randomly throughout the semesters, to be more present and then start to enforce some of the noise and other quality of life violations that are happening. You can't even walk your dog on Sunday morning on our street. It's a mess. There's glass all over the place. There's trash all over the place. There's food on the sidewalks. Those are all quality of life things that are not happening when the students aren't here. So we can only assume that it's them. And we really are asking council to work with the police department to come up with a little bit better plan to improve some of those quality of life issues that we see on our block. And I'm sure many others around us have some of those same issues. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Marty and Aaron, and I hope that we could come to a resolution to resolve these issues.
Any other comments from the residents? Okay, well, let's move to our discussion items for tonight, and we'll start with the Westchester Fire Department report.
Good evening, Justin McClure, Assistant Fire Chief. Chief Scanlon's on vacation this week. Council has the department's report for June. Call volume was slightly up over average. We had several significant incidents that you see, including 2 building fires and a subject tracked under a vehicle in East Bradford Township. Nothing other than that abnormal about the report. The other piece of news, I do have a report, and I'll be discussing this at finance tonight, so this will be a kind of a repeat. We were able to find a loaner ladder. That is something that we are not budgeted for. That is something that myself, the borough manager, and Barb have met about. So we have some potential paths forward on how we're going to make up for that cost. We originally were under the impression that our insurance company covered a leased vehicle. It does not. So that at least initially would be something that would have to come out of the fire department's budget to cover, as well as the insurance that will be required to carry on that vehicle for the amount of time that we have it. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Westchester Police Department.
Hello, I'm Josh Lee. I'm the police chief. I wanted to mention and thank council and civil service. We were able to swear in our newest officer last week. That's him there in the middle. Officer Ronald Cross, badge number 178. He's in training all this week and will be met with, or will be assigned to his field training officer on Monday to start that 14-week process of field training. So you may see a new officer in uniform riding around. There he is. We move on to the numbers. As you see it, they're very similar to last month's numbers, which are in pace, both month to month and year to year, normal numbers, if you will, for the month. Of note, excuse me, of note, we did have two burglaries that were solved, as well as two felonious assaults, to include five serious, rather serious crimes that were reported. Of those 5 serious crimes that were reported, 3 have been solved, and we're working diligently on the remaining 2. One of them is a burglary, and one of them is an aggravated assault. We move on. The National Night Out Against Crime is set for Tuesday, August 6th. Dave March, the Public Information Officer, who's also here but is shy, has put a lot of work into that. We're very excited. This is, I believe, the 10th year we've been very involved. 10th year in a row we've been very involved in this. Our police department and West Goshen are co-hosting the event. It's at B. Reed Henderson High School right up the street. But there will be all sorts of other law enforcement, public service agencies, as well as private entities that are there. I've been there for several years. If anybody in the room hasn't been there, I encourage you to stop out. It's always a good time. And then finally, anybody needs me, please reach out right there. I remain around for the discussion I know that's coming up. Look forward to that. And if you have any questions, I'll take them now.
I've one question that someone emailed me about. I guess this past weekend, it was on the news that Pennsylvania was changing some of its liquor laws, or on the cusp of changing some of the liquor laws. Most notably, what was asked of me was about the happy hour extension. And what are your thoughts on that? Do you foresee that anything that there could potentially be more issues that come about with an extension like this? Is that something that you're kind of have on your radar and you're watching? What are you thinking?
Full disclosure, I haven't heard anything like that. You're talking about the regulations as far as happy hours and advertisements for them?
Yeah, they're talking about, I think it's with, is it with the governor at this point? Right?
What it is, it's a continuation from basically restaurants have the ability to have the sidewalk presence moving forward, right? And that is being debated in the state legislature right now. I believe that's a continuation from COVID.
Gotcha.
It's beyond that too. Like the extension piece is that instead of a cap of 14 hours a week, about allowing happy hours to happen with the special prices and drinks and whatever, it's might extend to 24 hours a week. So, I know there's a lot of ifs, right? First, does it get approved? Do restaurants actually extend those hours, because there is a financial impact? I'm not sure what it would be on different restaurants. And if they do that, will people change their habits, and potentially will debauchery ensue more so than what it already does? So that was kind of the question that came up. So I guess at this point now, it's kind of on your radar. I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot that you can action today, but it's just something that I was curious if it would do anything, or if you've seen that it does something in other areas where something similar has happened.
I don't have any data to point to. I will keep it on my radar now. The best I could offer is that, clearly alcohol and drinking is the fuel to a lot of the issues that come before Borough Council. Stick around for a couple minutes. They're sensitive. I think it's on us as leaders. It's on, council as leaders to seriously consider, what impact we can have on new regulations as they come out. Whether or not we can have impact on those regulations, I don't know. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't when it comes to state liquor code and the state law. So it's definitely worth looking at and discussing moving forward. And I do thank you for bringing it to my attention. Thanks.
Thank you. Come on down, Daryl.
Daryl Cook, South 1st Street. Has anyone asked the police department for vehicular pedestrian incidents, and where do they happen the most?
It's certainly something that we track, Mr. Cook. I don't have that data in front of me. I'd be happy to follow up with you as soon as tomorrow via email, if you're all right with that, and I can come with a report next month if you'd like that as well.
The ambulance, Goshen.
Good evening, Chaz Bergen. I'm the EMS chief from Good Fellowship Ambulance. Happy to report halfway through the year, our volume remains stable. Pretty normal volume. Over the last 3 years, we've seen pretty dramatic increases every year, every month. We're not seeing that this year. The volume is really stable, and it does look like a spike for the month of June for just the borough here, but I think that was just a nuance from this time last year. But overall, the volume staying stable with what we would expect, which is a good thing. We're not seeing big jumps. So really nothing else remarkable on this month's report, unless there's any questions on that. Just one other thing I wanted to cover. Okay. Switch on over to that. So we're going to brag a little bit here. News we just got last week that we received this recognition from American Heart Association. This is the highest possible level recognition that an EMS agency can get from American Heart Association. Since we started the paramedic service in 2018, we've gotten the highest level every single year. That's unmatched in Southeastern Pennsylvania. So we're very proud of them. Really specific around their care of heart attack, chest pain, and stroke. So this is based on 7 metrics around quality, data, actual patient care. So really proud of the work they're doing, and they got recognized again this year from American Heart. So we just want to thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll move to our new discussion item, D, regarding the points program and the student rentals and the chapter 66 of the code. So yeah, I added this on. We had actually asked for it to be on the agenda, and we might have asked a little late, so we're adding it in under the discussion items for today. But I think, Chief Lee, you heard the comments from the residents. There was an email from Brian himself this past weekend regarding what's been going on. I know last year there was work that was started with the Westchester Community Campus Committee to look into the points program and where there are gaps and things like that, and just the whole system of managing incidents such as this. And I think between changing of students, changing of faculty, here in the borough and what have you, we lost a little of that traction. But as we're in the summertime and students will be returning in a month, it's a good time as any to start up the conversation again. And so, I think it's good time that we talk about, how do we want to attack this? What do we need to find out, and what do we need to do to continue to take action to make improvements? And so that's kind of where I wanted to start the conversation here tonight.
Two ways that enforcement happens when it comes to complaints about rental properties. And I use that term deliberately because it's not always about students. One pathway is through our Building and Codes Enforcement Office. So we'll get a complaint during Monday through Friday about a property condition. And the property could be in a poor state of repair. There could be trash. There could be weeds and overgrowth, or there could be a complaint about someone using a property illegally as a student home. That's a pretty bad one. So all of those things are responded to by our code enforcement officers Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. And we go out and we do an investigation. And if we find a reason to cite the property owner under our code, we generate a notice of violation, ticket, or citation, depending on, there's different rules, there's different flow charts for all of those things. That is delivered to the property owner, and then if the property owner is found guilty or pleads no contest in the district court, typically is where these are adjudicated, then they accumulate a point. There's different points for different kinds of violations, and it's elaborate. The system's very elaborate, but it's only at the point that they are convicted, so to speak, that those points accumulate. And then at that moment, we determine whether or not how severe the case has accumulated over 12 month period, which could result in commencing eviction at 5 points or more, or suspension of the rental license at 10 points or more in a 12-month period. So that flow chart and process is very elaborate, and it requires us to wait and hear if the defendant is guilty or not. And sometimes that can take a little bit of time in court. The other way that that's part of this conversation is things that can happen during the day, obviously, but typically what we heard were things that happen at night, and that's a call that goes into our dispatch team, either at the count 911 or our local number here. Our Chief Lee can speak to this a little bit more, but our officers respond, and if they determine through their response that a notice of disruptive conduct, and that's defined in our code, is merited, then that also can trigger consequences in our system, under how our codes are written. And those questions about what constitutes disruptive conduct or not, I think are best directed to Josh. But that's the other way that things can escalate and consequences can occur. So it's our job in the code enforcement department, and Sally couldn't be here tonight, unfortunately, to account for all of these infractions and accumulate them. And then when we get to the end of the 12-month period of that rental period, it goes back to zero again. And it's a lot, but it's what's on the code, and it's what we're pledged to do. And what we're striving to do is to do this accurately in accordance with what's in our code.
So what I'm hearing is there's opportunity to look at the code and change it. Okay.
And just to elaborate a little bit on the police or the law enforcement part of this, often, like Mr. Metrick said, the after hours enforcement is always going to be police. You know, when 911 is called or 696-2700, we get out there, and whether it's for typically these types of things are noise violations or safety concerns, like people on the roof. If we're able to identify two things, that a violation has occurred, and then the person who is responsible for that violation, if we have what's called probable cause, enough information to say it's much more likely than not that this person did commit this offense, then we arrest or cite them. Usually we cite them because it's usually for an ordinance violation, which is a summary offense, and that proceeds through the court. That's also the trigger. That citation or arrest for one of these disruptive type behaviors is the trigger for that police officer to also fill out the paperwork that Mr. Metrick is referring to, and then we send that. We like to say we send it upstairs. We send it to the codes department, and then they initiate that other piece of the process. And that really is it for us, unless and until we're called to court to testify to prosecute that case, and then our officers will do that in court. And that's a separate. That system is separate from the system that exists upstairs here, which is the other, the phase against the tenants or the landlord versus the phase that's against the offender who we cited or arrested. I hope I didn't muddy the water there any.
Quick question. We have cameras in the business district. Would it be a viable option to put cameras on those streets, South Matlack, South Walnut, and maybe that could deter some of these issues?
I think those are questions for your constituents and for council, whether or not neighbors want to be watched on camera, and how important they think that surveillance would be, or how important that issue is. Does it rise to the level where they think they should be surveilled? One thing I can tell you is that having cameras, monitoring cameras, and using cameras to investigate are three separate things. If the question is, does the police department have the staffing to monitor cameras? The answer to that is no. I would love to discuss ways to be able to afford to do that. It would definitely require having more police officers. or more staff. Do cameras help in investigating offenses? Absolutely. You know, by and large, we're able to clear very serious crimes. The ones, you know, of the crimes that I alluded to in my report earlier, the majority of those serious crimes, cameras are involved in investigating them. So again, I hope that doesn't muddy the water, but I think there's very important questions that we need to ask before we get.
So not quite a similar, but what Marty was saying is apparently it's like clockwork that when the students or whomever come down the street and make a lot of noise, is there opportunity to adjust staffing, you know, wherever the police is deployed in certain locations, at least for, you know, at the beginning of the year, just to start to send a message and be able to be there to provide these citations? And then that's one question. Then my follow-up question is, what obstacles are involved with regards to being able to do a citation? Because it goes back to, I think, again, this past weekend, none
Right.
that there, you know, after all this happened, nobody was held accountable.
Right.
So A, that one question, and then B, your obstacles.
So I'll try to answer the first one and then not forget the second one. That your first question is one of the easiest boxes that we can check. That's an easy win. Some of what we already do is staff according to what good guesses we can make as far as when and where we need more police. You know, we know that last week in August, first week in September, first 2 weeks in September, always is a time where, well, you know, frankly, the students are back and we need to be out there more. So we do that already. There are weeks sometimes that are surprises that, you know, we are not staffed up for, but we are always staffed at a minimum that allows us to send officers out. For example, in this case, it's better than most. In the case that we're talking about tonight, we had 4 officers on that block within 3 minutes of the first phone call. Now, had they been there 3 minutes prior, maybe a different story, and that's what we can try to do better. But we were in a pretty good position, you know, on this one, and still didn't end up with the result that we would have probably all liked to have. So yes, we will do that, and we will staff accordingly for the times that we know things are going to happen. Part of my budget presentation.
We talk to Marty and get some times. He can probably.
Yeah, absolutely. Part of what you'll see in my budget presentation later in the year is going to involve certain asks that are going to come along with, you know, being able to staff at times where we know things are likely to be busier. So I hope I answered that first question. Now, the second one reminds me.
Your obstacles. What are your?
Oh, yeah. So to cite. So one thing we do very well, and here's where I'm happy to brag about the Westchester Police Department, is we investigate crimes and cases very, very well. Our officers overwhelmingly are good police officers and good investigators. And I'm happy to say that, and I'm proud to say that, especially for very, very serious crimes, but also where we get our practice, you know, really are the less serious crimes. And to take nothing away from the experience that the residents had this last Friday or this last Independence Day was a less serious crime in the grand scheme of things, although it was the most serious thing going on at that moment, right? So we obviously handled it accordingly and took it very seriously. But what obstacles we have to be able to identify, it sounds simpler than it is, but number one, that a crime or an ordinance violation occurred, and number two, who exactly was the person to commit that violation. So it's easy to say it happened in Westchester. It's easy to say it happened on Walnut Street. It's easy to say it happened in the 300 block of South Walnut Street. It's easy to say it happened in that house. It's a little harder to say who did it. And those are the challenges sometimes that we're faced with.
So if this past day, the residents were able to say that person was on the roof, you could have cited that person?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, you can. Come on up.
I feel like we're doing it again. I get that these issues are complex, but I'm hearing again about what we can't do. And I absolutely stipulate that was what happened to us the most serious crime in Chester County? No. But there were kids that were drunk on a roof, and ultimately they came around to retaliate and they launched a mortar firework in the direction of my house. And I'm just sitting here going, am I supposed to take video? Would that help? And I just don't think, like, how do we... Chief Lee has been wonderful to work with. I want to commend him. He took the time to talk with us. The codes people have been wonderful. They've taken the time to come and talk with us. But I still feel like, come on, like, can we cite the house? Like, you know, University of Delaware, and I'd have to look this up, but can we bring them in to talk to us about what their ordinance does and how do we get the landlords involved? You know, is it a different type of citation? Maybe it's not law enforcement. You know, maybe it's like, come on, like, what can we do? That's what I'm thinking of. And I appreciate you asking the questions, Council. I do appreciate it. I know our hearts are in the right place.
Again, no, we can't cite a house. You know, the house is the place to start as far as to start an investigation, but we can't. I do believe there are steps that council could take to enact different, you know, ordinances or regulations that would make it easier to hold landowners or property owners, landlords, that's the word I was looking for, you know, more responsible. And we would be a part of that solution. We'd probably be the first step of that, you know, that 911 call or that call to the police station. We're certainly, the police department, myself and everybody in it is happy to be a part of not only that discussion, but those steps to enact some sort of change if that's where we get. We're just not there today. That's not where we are.
So, and I know along with your thoughts here too, Sally's also wrote an email and had a lot of ideas. I guess the question is, I mean, we're not going to solve anything tonight. I mean, the conversation, it sounds like we need to look at these flows. There's apparently lots of flows. I like flows. I'm in project management. Flows are great. So and it goes back to I know, and I see the mayor out there, and I know that you were working with the community campus committee last year too. Does it make sense to bring it back to them and create that group again, or does it make more sense to create a similar team outside of that group that really looks in and tries to tackle these problems? And try to look at the flows and look at the things we can do to change the ordinance to make whatever you can do easier for you and your team to be able to do, and also for Sally and her team to be able to do. I guess that's what I'm curious to know, like, where can we start and what group is the best way to start? Yes, Mayor, please.
So that's a very good question. I think to answer that question, I think there does need to be a group of invested people, not only from the community, because those who are affected by the problem, I think, are the ones who are invested in it and can help come up with reasonable out of the box thinking and solutions. So I would say that when we sit down and talk, not only since we have a new group of people in place, we have a new chief, we have a new housing and codes officer. I think we have key new people in place that we need to start again with a new committee outside of the community campus committee, because that was, you know, their solutions to problems was in some ways good, but they were very feel-good solutions where we need some hard action. Because, and it's a conversation that Chief and I have spoken about. And I was hoping that he and me and Chair of Housing and Codes could sit down and talk this week, but she has, you know, has things going on and couldn't do so. Because I think we do need to see, okay, is this point system working or not? Because it wasn't enforced before from the previous codes officer. And because I've sat in meetings and his response was lackadaisical. So I think we need to see, does it work or does it not? Give it a short-term run, give it, from August or September to the end of this year, see if it works. Based upon the data that's collected and the neighbors who are invested in it. Let's see if this works or doesn't work. And then if it doesn't work, while we're doing that, let's look at these other college towns that have things in place to see what works. Because it definitely, along with the council shoring up the regulations and what needs to be shored up in terms of ordinances and regulations, I think this needs to be a holistic approach. It has to have council, it has to have the police, it has to have the neighbors, those invested parties is what I think. I think we can do both simultaneously. We can check and see if the points are working, see if we need to enhance it in any way, shape, or form, or replace it.
So I like this. Does it make sense if you three are working together, you and Chief Lee and Sally, and are starting this out? Does it make sense for us to start putting on this public safety agenda on a regular basis, kind of like a report out of your activities and like how it's going? I mean, I know we're in July, so actually by August, by next month, the students are going to be here, so there should be like the action plan. And then September, how's it going? And then October, how's it going? And then we can have that as a report from, I guess, both Chief Lee and Sally, how they're seeing it and what they've been doing. And then that can help us decide by the end of the year, like you said, I like that, whether it's working
Right.
or not.
And it may make sense, but I would want to speak to them because they're the experts in their field. And before we make that decision, I think a report is certainly warranted, maybe 2 reports, a beginning report, mid report, end report, 3 reports. I can't count. So, maybe 3 reports, maybe not every month, but certainly you get a sense of where it started and how it's going.
How's
So-
that feel for you, Chief Lee?
Good. No. No, I think it makes sense to look at the data so that we can be informed and make, so that you can be informed and make good decisions based on data. And I'd be happy to bring that data, moving forward and break it down in something that's digestible, that makes sense. And we can work offline to decide exactly what you want me to bring to you, and what we want to look at. But I think that's a very good idea.
Great, thank you. So yeah, so next month we'll kind of know, after you all 3 meet and start working through what your action plans are, and then yeah, what is valuable to us to hear on a regular, semi-regular basis, and we'll go from there. But we'll start with you guys just coming back after you've had a chance to regroup on what you're thinking. And yes.
To add is, I don't think that's the sole answer. I think we can look at it from all points in all directions. I think that's one of the steps, but it has to be one of several steps. I know the organization wants to meet, and I think that's a good opportunity to, kind of talk it out. Communication is key in all of this, and I think that's what was lacking before. Communication. It just wasn't any. Or the police would do their job and then it would sit. But I also think, although no one's asked me this, I think that somehow or another, Housing and Codes needs to have someone out on weekends, because the weekend incidents go unchecked. And I don't know how you do that. I mean, I'm just spitballing here, borough manager, but I think that would be optimal too.
All right, all good ideas. Brian, any other thoughts that you have here?
No, I mean, I think that reevaluating the point system and comparing that with other college towns make sense to help, maybe we could enhance it and have more stringent enforcement.
So let me ask you this. So Sean, I think your action item is to think about staffing and if there's ever a way to have people on the weekend, talk to Sally about that. Then the other action item, researching other college towns. Is that something that, I can take on, or is that like, who would research the other college towns? Well, the team, the brain trust of enforcement starts to get to work on, what they see they can do.
Yeah, I'm just thinking in my head, what other comparable towns we would have, I'm in State College.
IUP.
Well, my niece is about to go to State College. I can just ask her what happens. No, but she shouldn't be drinking. She's not 21. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I can start doing some research if that's helpful. Okay. All right, residents. How you feeling good? We're trying. Everybody's hearing you, and then we're all trying. So thank you, Chief Lee. Thank you, Lillian. Thank you, Sally, wherever you are, for what you guys are all doing. So thank you. Okay, so let's move on to our action items. Motion to approve 5-year police services contract, East Bradford Township.
Yeah, this is a proposed 5-year renewal of police services between the borough and East Bradford Township. Josh can talk about the service delivery portion of it, and we are going to also have this on the finance agenda tonight to talk about the dollars. I'm happy with the dollars. I've focused on the dollars part of this equation, and Josh is focused on the service delivery and service quality part of the equation.
So this is an easy one. The borough, very brief background, the borough and East Bradford have had a relationship as far as police services go, going back more than 30 years now. We're coming up on 30 years. Certainly as long as I've been here, the township has contracted with the borough. And this was my first go through as chief and being part of this negotiation process. And I want to say on record, what a pleasure it was to work with Mandy Cantlin at East Bradford and with Sean here for what really does benefit both agencies or both municipalities. In government, it's not often that we're able to cooperate in such a positive way, and that's exactly what this is. This is a bargain for East Bradford, and it is a bargain for Westchester, and it allows us to operate the way we do. Our municipalities are adjacent to one another. When things happen in Westchester, very often it trickles into East Bradford and vice versa, both figuratively and literally. And this really is just it is a win-win for both municipalities, certainly for my agency. We wouldn't be staffed the way we were if it weren't for this partnership, and that allows us to do a lot of good things. Certainly, if there's any questions, feel free to ask. But that was my commercial for what a great thing this is.
No, I have no objections to it.
Me neither. So
It's safe to say the committee has a 2-0 recommendation in favor of adopting.
yes. All right. Special event applications.
Evening, Keith Karowski, Director of the Parks and Rec Department. I'll speak on behalf of One First. At the 6/26 Recreation Commission meeting, they recommended to this committee that any park friends groups that are submitting a special event application be waived of any parking fees that are associated with that event. Currently, just to bring you up to speed, there's only one Park Friends group that is holding events, and that is the Friends of Marshall Square Park and their annual concert series. So their request, and I'll let one of the Friends of Marshall Square Park speak to that, is a request in the waiver of the fees they paid for their series for this summer. The series has been approved. There are no other costs to the borough except for the parking fees that are being charged for their food trucks to park along Matlack Street. If you have any questions to that, I'll let Chantel with the Friends of Marshall Square speak to that before we get to the other ones.
My only question is how much?
$400. It's $100 per concert, $100 a block, 4 concerts.
And this is a fee that we charge anyone who's requesting that an area be posted no parking. So this is basically a fee we charge to cover the time it takes and the little bit of material cost to go into that, to go out and post the area as no parking for approaching event.
I don't have any issue with it. No, we're
Yeah.
waiving the fee.
I'm okay.
Cool. And then John from the bid is here to speak on his behalf for the Up on the Roof. And just to let you know, 1, 2, 3, and 4, all of these events have been approved by the police department and the Parks and Recreation Department.
So John O'Brien, I'm actually here tonight with the Westchester Downtown Foundation, which is a separate organization from my professional job as representing downtown Westchester / the bid. This is the 22nd annual event of Up on the Roof. It is a charity fundraiser for the Westchester Downtown Foundation. It's their main fundraiser. The funds that are raised there are used for community grants to other nonprofits in the greater Westchester area, as well as for supporting the Clean and Green efforts. For instance, they were a prime sponsor of Porch Fest for the Westchester Green Team. All of that's made possible by Up on the Roof. So part of our ask, and we have asked this for the last 2 events and asking again this year, we do provide validations to the attendees for the Chestnut Street Garage. And we've asked council in the past to waive up to a cap of $500 the fee or the validation cost. So why we are saying it's up to $500 because there's generally capacity within the garage. It's not really a loss of revenue for the borough. We don't see a very high utilization of cars all in all because it is a very community-oriented event. So we have attendees that are usually borough residents, so they're either walking or Ubering to the event to begin with. So that is part of the event. It'll take place on Saturday, September 14th at 5 o'clock. And we always look forward to seeing council and everybody attend the event as well. It is rain or shine. We do it at the top of the garage and then we move it down 1 level if it looks like it's bad weather.
And this is just something we do every year.
Yes. So, I mean, the event has, like I said, it's been going on for 22 years. Started at the Bicentennial Garage. Probably for the last 18, it's been at the top of the Chestnut Street Garage. The waiver of the parking violations has been something I believe the last 2 years that has been part of this as well. And the borough is recognized as a sponsor and with all our publicity as a Vista level sponsor for that as well.
I have no objections. I mean, we've done this prior years.
I'm good. I just wish that I could make it some year. Every year I have a conflict and I really want to go.
No worries.
Fun.
All right. Appreciate it. Thank you.
I would like to echo that because it's the day before the restaurant festival and there's no way I'm going to a party the night before the restaurant festival. If there's any questions about 3 and/or 4, the annual Chester County Restaurant Festival, there are no changes to the layout or the format for the event from last year. It will encompass only Gay Street. It will not encompass Market Street as we used to do prior to the pandemic. That is mainly from a staffing and safety perspective. There's no changes from last year, so there shouldn't be any. Again, both of these events have been approved by the police department and the Parks and Rec department. And then the number 4 is the annual Veterans Day Parade, which I hope to be working with the Veterans Council to do a little bit more publicity and promotion of that event because last year I think it fell a little short of what they were looking for, and they deserve a whole lot more.
I agree with that, the publicity. As far as 3 and 4, we've always approved the waiver of these events.
Cool.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item C, motion to approve June 2024 meeting minutes. I'm okay.
Approved.
All right. Moving forward, any other business? Seeing none, we are adjourned at 6:21.